So we're back with another tape adventure finally. You might notice that I'm actually in a different space completely to the last video. That's because I actually moved house since the last video, so it's been pretty hectic. There's a whole video of this chaotic setup build on my channel if you want to check it out, but I'm just excited to be actually using this space now and doing another analog recording video. So in this video, it's kind of a part 2 of the last one I did with the unlimited tape tracks. So I'm going to try and figure out the best way to sync things up when you're actually in the DAW, because in that last video, I was noticing that over time, there was a tape fluctuation that naturally happened, so the tracks would actually get out of sync as they got longer. So I'm going to explore a way to actually sync everything up so it actually locks into place with all the other tracks. Thank you so much to everyone that commented on the last few videos. It's been a real sense of community. That is the whole reason I create these videos, so I really appreciate anyone that took the time to watch or comment. And in those comments, there's been so many tips and tricks from people with way more knowledge of this than me. And what I've basically done is took the best of the bunch, and I think I've chosen a method that seems like a good combination of all of them. Some people in the comments mention these MIDI to tape sync units, which seem a little bit more complex than the kind of thing I'm trying to do here. But I am aware that that's an option that I could go into in the future. If you're interested, let me know, and I'll try and track one of these old units down, because they can be quite hard to find, I've heard. I'm sat here with the Tascam Porta Studio 414 Mark II again, which has a rightful place all the time on this desk now. So let's get these first 4 tracks filled up, and then I can jump in and try out this method that I've got in mind. Okay, let's get to it. We're going to use the BASF Chrome Extra for this. BASF? B-A-S-F? Whatever it is. I'll never get bored of opening a fresh one of these. Let's get this bad boy in. So the first thing I'm going to do, which is different to what we did before, is reserve track 4 for the click track and literally not even touch it. Every time we record over tracks 1, 2 and 3, we're going to leave the click track as it is on track 4. That way we can always have a reference of what our timing is, and then in Logic, if this works, hopefully we should be able to lock all of the tempo to that initial click, and then we'll bring in the new click, and that should be able to quantize to the original click, if that makes sense. So we're reserving track 4 at all cost. So what I'm going to do with this cable, this is basically just an output from my DAW in the back of the interface, and it just allows me to send whatever I want from the computer through that output into this cable, so I can send it into whatever track I want to. So what I'm going to do is set the output to output 3, which is where this cable is plugged into on the back of the interface. When I click play, and now what you're hearing is the output of the tape machine. So what I'm going to do is record just a few minutes of that, so it'll cover the whole song or section of the song that I'm going to be recording in this video. And then I'm recording onto the wrong track, I've just realised. I'm going to plug this into track 4, because as I just stressed, track 4 is going to be reserved just for the click track for this whole process. Now I'm going to record a few minutes of the click track to track 4, then we have an internal click track in the tape machine that we can base everything around when it comes to syncing. I'll save you the boring bit and skip past the few minutes of click track. So now we have a click track on track 4 that we can play everything else to when we record on the tape machine. So I just finished recording some drums on this, and I actually decided to take full advantage of being able to multi-track and have unlimited tracks essentially, which feels illegal to do on this 4-track, but I've used literally 3 tracks for drums. I know, it feels like a dirty thing to do. So this is all from the electric kit behind me as well, and we've got the kick in isolation. And then we've got the snare. And then just the overheads. And then all together. Sounding pretty damn nice. So it's also just a good way to add a sort of live feel to an electronic drum kit, which can sometimes feel a little bit soulless, but I was playing it in as well, so that helps as well. So what I'm going to do now is bring all of these tracks into the DAW at the same time, and then this is going to be our first 4 tracks, and we can base the timing of everything else off the click that's recorded on track 4. I'll show you how to do that. So I've just got all this set up in Logic. Ignore the absolute mess on the desk right now. It's just a bunch of patch cables and random instrument cables that I've just found to do this job. I think I might make a standalone video on how to actually get these 4 tracks recorded out of the Tascam 414 all separately into Logic, because that's a whole other thing. For now, I've got tracks 1 to 4 in Logic, as you can see, and when I press play, everything is recording on its own track digitally now, as well as in the actual tape machine. So I'll just press play on the tape machine. So you can see on track 4, that's just the click. Track 3 is going to just be the overhead drum mic. Track 2 is going to be just the snare. And track 1 is going to just be the kick drum. So all together. we're getting all the tracks individually. So essentially this is the start of the process that we'll do. Every time we fill up the first 3 tracks, we'll repeat this exact same process and then line up the tracks after. So all we got to do is hit play, hit record in Logic, and then wait till it's all recorded. So that's all recorded in. We can stop recording in Logic, rewind the tape, and then fill up the rest of the tracks again. The only problem we have now is if we record over these 3 tracks, we're just recording blindly to a click without knowing what we've actually recorded. I think a way to get around this could be to leave the overhead track on track 3 and then just use tracks 1 and 2 for our unlimited tracks to bring back in, just so we've got reference of what the drums are doing for the other instruments. So we're going to go ahead and record some guitar onto track 1 over the kick drum track that we just recorded into the computer. I think that's a take. Everything you're hearing is virtual instruments, so it's virtual drums, it's virtual amp emulation, and I feel like sending it through this is just such a nice way to just add a live feel to it. That's what I keep referring to it as. It adds that sort of soul warmth to it, if you know what I mean. It sort of like takes it out of the digital space into the real world, if that makes any sense. I know I'm using a bunch of terms where I'm doing this, but that's the only way I can feel like I can explain it. I think it's time to add some bass to this on track 2, and then we can figure out if the syncing method actually works. With a manual fade out as well. Oh damn! Real happy with that. So now we've filled up all the tracks again though, because we're going to save 3 and 4 for the drums and the click, just to keep us all in time. So now we need to bring all of these in and see if they're in time in the software, and then if not, see if this syncing method works. So again, we're going to press record in Logic and then press play on the Porter Studio. Every time we bring in 4 tracks, we need to group so they're quantized locked in Logic. So what I'm going to do is select the first 4 and put them into group 1, and then in the group settings you can see here it says editing and quantize locked audio. We can just get rid of every other one, because that means every time we move the timing of one of the tracks, it will affect the other tracks. We're going to set the cue reference, which is this green cue, to whichever track that your click track is. In my case, this is always going to be track 4. So that means if we edit the timing of this with flex time, or whatever the equivalent is in your DAW, every other track will move in time with it. So you can see this track at the bottom is my click track. So if I move this, all of the other tracks move in time with it. And now if you just had the same light bulb moment that I did when I realized that this could work, that means that every time we bring in 4 tracks, we can repeat this process and time align the new click that's been brought in to the click of the previous one. So there'll always be time aligned to the first 4 tracks that we brought in. I hope this makes sense in any way. So we're going to select the next 4 tracks that we just brought in with the bass and guitar and select the same thing, editing and quantize locked audio. And then of course we need something for this to actually be quantized too. So we need to make sure that the tempo in our DAW project is the same as whatever the click track was, which this already is, because obviously I already sent the click from Logic to the Porter Studio already with the correct tempo. So what we got to do first is get the first 4 tracks and line up the click to the bars in Logic. You can see here there's a click there, and this will actually visually prove the sort of issue that I'm trying to fix here. So we can see that this is right on the bar there, and then it probably will be, okay, no, it's already fluctuated. So this is 110 BPM, the exact same that I sent to the tape machine, but we can see that after a few bars, this is actually already out of time. There's the first one. Literally after 4 beats, we can see it's already starting to jump a little bit late. So if we skip all the way to the end of the song, this is the bar where the line is, and the click is like really late after it. Now that this is the reference to all of those other 4 tracks in its group that came in at the same time, I should be able to just quantize this to a quarter note. So you probably notice as I click on this, you'll notice everything sort of move a little bit together. So select quarter note, see everything just sort of pushed back. Hopefully that means that that just actually worked. Here it is again, that's the very first click on the beat, and I hope this works. And then if we go all the way to the end, there we go, the very last beat's on there as well, and all the ones in between. We can see if I skip bar by bar, the click is always on that beat. The great thing about this is, because we align the click and not the instruments will still be relative to the click, if that makes sense. So we'll still have the natural performance. We've not made all these guitar performances, drum performances locked to the grid. We've just made them locked to the original click, which means it still keeps that authentic feel of not having time aligned stuff. Even though we could go far and do that, we have the option to do anything we want now because we're in the box. But if you just want to keep the analog sound and not do much to it when it's in here, this is a way to keep it in time and actually get these unlimited tracks all lined up, which is a super exciting thing. So now we can bring in the second 4 tracks and essentially repeat the same process, but then just line this back up. So now this is the kind of moment of truth. If I turn up these 2 tracks and we don't hear bass and guitar that's in time, somewhat in time, my playing might have something to do with that, but it should be in time with at least the rest of the other tracks, how we record it in the Porter studio. Oh yes, it worked. So now we can essentially just keep repeating this over and over again, use whichever tracks we want and then bring them in. But I'm going to take this a step further because I think only having tracks 1 and 2 free is going to get really tedious to repeat this process over and over again. So we need to open up track 3, which is where a comment that I got comes to mind from Apro or Apro109. What they suggested I do is bring in a mono mix on track 4 to actually replace the click track. And I think if we have a mono mix that includes the drums, bass and guitar and the click track, that will give us a good enough sort of reference for laying down all the other tracks. And then what that would mean is that we can use tracks 1, 2 and 3, get really creative within the actual Porter studio and then bring this in. So essentially it's allowing us to not have to do this process after every 2 tracks we put down, we get an extra track out of it. So I've just got a rough mix, just levels wise down. And what I'm going to do is send this whole mono mix to track 4 to replace the click that we had before. So now we'll have tracks 1, 2 and 3 to do whatever we want with before sending it back in. And we'll have a full reference of all of the notes and rhythms that are actually going on in the song. So in Logic I've set all of the outputs to output 3, which is where this cable is coming out of. I'm going to plug that into track 4 and then we should get this whole mono mix coming through. And then obviously that's going to be a lot nicer to record to than just a click track and drums with nothing on. So I just went through that whole process and now we've got the mono track with the click on this channel. So now we can rewind back to the beginning and start adding over 3 tracks now, which is a game changer. So I think what we're going to go for on tracks 1, 2 and 3, now that we've got them open, is a doubled guitar on track 1, a sort of synth lead thing on track 2, and then some vocals on track 3, and then we'll pretty much have a full track, and then we can go to adding some harmonies and stuff as well. So then when we're completed with that, we'll have used 3 times what this Porter Studio is actually capable of, technically. So let's get on with some doubled guitar. So it's essentially just a double track of pretty much the exact same thing I'm going to be doing, just to get a bit of stereo width on it, which is something that on a 4 track I feel like I can't really get, is that nice stereo width and spreading things out, just because of the lack of tracks, which I know is the whole point. But obviously using this method, it's a best of both worlds sort of situation. First take, I'll take it. Sweet, let's add some synth to that. Okay, so I've patched through a synth now. This was actually a synth that I made in Logic from a sample of a bird, because this song is called Songbirds. And I thought it would be like kind of cheesy, but it kind of came out with a real nice grip to it. So now we're going to record this into our new mono track that we put in. I'm having fun. I always find a point in these process videos where it just locks in and I know exactly what I'm doing, and that's how I feel right now. Time for some vocals. So we're going to record vocals onto track 3, and we're using the exact same method, basically sending out the interface with this cable with all of our vocal effects already on as well. Now I definitely want to drive the vocals a little bit harder into this, because why not? I think that's really nice. Cause you know I like the songbirds in the morning time. Refresh my broken mind, and I will go where the sun glows and the wind blows. That felt pretty good. I really like the tone on that vocal as well, how it's pushed just enough where it like creates a nice warmth around it, but without being, you know, super hardcore distorted for such a chill song. So now we've filled up our 3 tracks again, so it's time to rinse and repeat the same process and get them all into the DAW. So after finishing recording the main vocal and bringing in all of those tracks into the DAW again, I went ahead and filled up 3 more tracks. So I recorded stereo harmony tracks so I could pan them either side, and then I've recorded a lead guitar track as well, so that's where I'm catching up from now. That's the lead done. Now let's get all of these files in for the final mix. Finally. We made it. So I've just went through the process of getting these files in, and then I've spent a bit of time actually organising the file. So basically what we've got, I normally have drums at the bottom, then bass, then synth, lead, guitar and vocals. All of this has come from the tape itself. So in the end we've got 11 tracks altogether from this 4 track. So we've almost tripled what this is actually capable of just in the actual unit itself, which as a concept is just a really cool thing to be able to do. So what I'm going to do to end this video is show a full mix of this where I've used compression, EQ, added some reverb and other effects. I just wanted to really push this as far as it could go and show you an example of that. But just in case you wanted to hear the raw tracks just leveled, I've included a mix of that as well. So if you go down to the description, you'll find a mix where it's literally just come straight out of the tape machine and I've just leveled it in the DAW. So you can find both mixes down there. But in this video, this is the mix that I've done that includes compression and all of the bells and whistles that you can get out of a DAW, because I really wanted to push this as far as it could go. Caught me in a storm. Now it's just the calm after it. The air feels so cool, and I'm not in a rush to change it. Algorithmic nights seem so far behind. One thing about the new me that you know I like, yeah, you know I like the songbirds in the morning time. Refresh my broken mind, and I will go where the sun glows and the wind blows. The benefits that I felt personally was being able to really be in the sort of analog recording workflow in terms of takes having to be good, everything having to sound good on the way in. But then also we get the benefit of being able to layer up tracks afterwards as well and get that nice warm analog feel to it. So for me, it just keeps you in the mindset while recording of this has to be good, we can't fix this after, even though we technically could fix this after. But it keeps me in the mindset where I'm not going to fix it in post, I'm going to get it right on the way in. So bringing this into the digital world also gives us the ability to clean things up as well. So during recording I was punching in and out quite a lot if I just wanted to sing one line or add a guitar part, and it actually makes quite a noticeable spike in the audio recording. So it actually enabled me to go in and just remove those little bits that I didn't want in there. And because I was going back in and recording parts over other parts on tracks, there was little bits of, say, a vocal left in a guitar track, and I could go in and remove those as well. Another thing during the edit that I just did to this was I just realigned those vocals, because the issue that I mentioned earlier did actually create a little bit of an issue at the end. So I just realigned those vocals, and I don't think you can tell now. So that's a little workaround that actually helped with this. So in the end, I think having a clean click track separate to the rest of the track that you're actually recording to is probably the best way to do this, just because it seemed to quantize to the drums and not the actual click. And obviously the drums were a little bit out of time because, you know, it was me playing basically. But any human playing drums isn't going to be exactly on the click. So it was quantizing the kicks and snares when really it should have been quantizing the click, because then the performance would still sound natural. It didn't affect things too much in the end, luckily, because we already had the drum track recorded from a clean click earlier. So that's the mix that we ended up with in the end. Let me know if you think it's even worth mixing in the box, or if you should just stick to the 4-track itself, or if you think the raw files version sounded better, where we just stacked them up in the DAW and then just leveled it without touching any effects digitally. Remember, you can find that version in the description as well if you want to have a listen to that. But yeah, thanks for coming along on another tape adventure. I've really enjoyed every single video I've done on this so far. I've been absolutely loving the comments section on these videos. It's just been full of tips and tricks from people that actually used these systems back in the day, and also just good discussions on whether it's even worth it to bring analog into the digital world and vice versa. Let me know your thoughts on all of that, and I'll see you on the next one.